What's going on? I'm Ashby Mixon here with Jason Priester, and you're watching another episode of Rounding the Bases. JP, how's it going?
I'm doing very well. And did y'all catch that? It's Ashby Mixon, not Ashby Nixon.
Listen,
Mixon.
it's a very, very important change, but at this point, I'll answer to either one. I'll answer to Ashley, anything you can need. I got it.
My
But it's
sister's
also important to note that
named Ashley.
Jason Priester is JP's name, but yet the P in JP stands for Priester. And so when you are looking at his username right now, you are saying Jason Priester. So just a little FYI for everybody. Before we get started today, want to start by thanking our sponsor, Mission Roofing. Mission Roofing is the go-to company for all residential roofing needs in the upstate of South Carolina. Whether it's a small repair, full roof replacement, or insurance restoration, Mission Roofing will provide a solution. Go check out their Facebook page and call or text 864-419-8173 for all of your roofing inquiries. Well, JP, since we last talked, Clemson baseball has picked up 5 wins. That feels like a lot has gone on since we've been here.
It does. They kind of swept through that invitational last weekend. Won a couple of those games ugly. Not a lot of hitting outside of the one blowout they had. Just wasn't a lot of hits to be found over the weekend for the most part. Then they come out and just hammer Winthrop on Tuesday. Just hits galore. Finally find a long ball, including a grand slam from Jake Gerald. And just in time because, the big one's coming up this weekend. But, before we get to that, I thought it was a good sign that they were able to win some of those games, despite the fact that they just weren't able. The balls, they hit some hard, but they just weren't finding landing spots. They hit some right at guys. And I think it's a good sign for a team to be able to win games in a number of different ways.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, when they were in a tough spot a couple times, when the other team cut the lead to, 1 run or whatever, they had clutch hits when they needed to pull away. And you saw that too in the first weekend against Arizona when, they cut it to 3, and that's when we really started getting going. And so I think that was a good sign too, that they were able to have clutch hits and, when it was needed. And then I think Winthrop really took the brunt of a lot of frustration on Tuesday. I really did. Come out there random Tuesday in February and hit lights out. That was pretty fun to watch, I think.
Yeah, it seemed like every time, over last weekend, every time a team would score a couple runs or even come back and take the lead momentarily, Clemson will respond right back in the bottom half of the inning and score some runs and go right back on top. I think that is a really good sign for this team early in the season. We heard Eric Backus say several times how he wanted to see his team respond to different types of adversity. And I would say they have probably passed every test so far. It seems like, to use his term, when they get punched in the mouth or punched in the face or whatever, they just come right back with a haymaker of their own. And, that's what you want to see. I know a lot of people were worried about the lack of power. And I'm still of the opinion that the weather plays a big part in that. I think the wind blew in a lot of, probably all weekend. I wasn't there, but it looked like it from on television. It looked like it was blowing in, and it was kind of cold, cool, and balmy, just not optimal for the baseball carrying real well. Once it warmed up a little bit, dang if it didn't start carrying real well Tuesday night.
I completely agree. I was gonna ask you, do you think the Winthrop game and some of the past series, do you think it kinda stops the narrative about Clemson not having as much power and stops the narrative about the bats being the issue and all this stuff that we've seen on social media?
Has that been a big thing about the bats?
Oh, yeah.
I saw one person raise that topic, but that's it. I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter, but I actually, I had wondered about that myself, but I don't. I got to see more if I'm gonna start blaming equipment. I need to see a lot more. I don't think we're anywhere close to that yet. I don't think if there's even any question that you're not going to have the same type of pop with the bats. I don't even think you see Clemson make that deal. I mean, they've got people that look into those type of things, and especially as analytical as Eric Bakich is, you know that's something they did a deep dive into. So yeah,
Well,
I don't lend a whole lot of credence to that.
I
You know,
completely agree.
and
And I think
it seems like a lot of the stuff about the power has kind of quietened down some since Tuesday. But again, it's still a small sample size, but I'm not too worried about the power. I think they're. I'm not. I don't know that they're going to hit the same amount of home runs they did last year, but I think they're going to hit enough.
I think so too. And I think that was kind of shown the past few days of, if we're not hitting home runs, we're still going to find ways to score, and then we can also hit them. And going back to the bat thing, um, there have been huge powerhouse programs that have used Marucci bats for years and years and years. Like LSU uses them, and has forever. Um, so I don't know. I thought that argument was a little bit like, all right, let's look at this. It's freezing cold one weekend, and then you're in a big league park the first weekend. Like, let's breathe a little bit. It's okay. They're gonna hit home runs. And I was really happy to see that, because it was like, there we go. Now this will stop it. But yeah, that was definitely great to see. Was happy for Jacob Jarrell and getting that, and also Tristan McClatty. Goodness gracious, what a weekend he had.
Yeah, there's some people out there that owe that guy an apology. After the first two games out in Arlington, he started two of those games in right field, and I think he was 1 for 7. Yeah, he was 1 for 7. He didn't have a great weekend, and there were people that didn't want to see any more of him. And I had been told that he had a really good fall, really good preseason, and you can tell by the opportunities he's continued to get. He's made the most of them. He's hitting 400. Um, he's got 8 RBIs already, 2 doubles, a home run. I mean, he's doing it, playing a little bit of everywhere, kind of showing off that versatility. Personally, I like him a little bit better in the infield than I did in right field. I think his glove's much better. His defense is much better on the infield, but that's kind of nitpicking. Him and Dominic Listy's another one that they have just started the season on fire. And there's some people out there in the Twitterverse that might owe Tristan McClatty an apology.
I totally agree. He forced Bakich to keep him on the field with how he was playing. He had the opportunity. I don't think he played the first game, and then came in and was just lights out. Like, had 7 hits. And when you have that kind of production, you're making your case. You're gonna play, no matter how many great guys are also good enough to be on the field, you're gonna get an opportunity playing like that. And so I agree. I think the whole weekend was a little bit of a shut up to everybody on, that were kind of his haters the first weekend. So that was fun to see for sure.
He got my vote for ACC Player of the Week. He didn't win it, but he got at least one vote. I can tell you that. I mean, because that Tuesday's numbers don't factor into that because we do it on Monday, so it's just a weekend and last Tuesday. But I thought he had that good of a weekend. Yeah, I didn't. I figured he probably wasn't going to win it. There was one guy that had a little bit better of a weekend, but he definitely got one vote, man. And I thought he earned it. But it's good to see a guy that we've heard Eric Bakich say that's a guy that could have easily transferred after last year. He just didn't play a whole lot. He especially he didn't get many at bats. I think maybe 18 or something like that all last season. I think he's already got more than that already this year. So I know it was only 1 year, but a guy that remained patient and didn't run off at the first sign of adversity, stuck around and pushed through it. And another thing Beckett says is the game rewards you, and the game is absolutely rewarding him right now.
Absolutely. Where do you think going forward they'll put him? Do you think he'll stay in the infield? Do you think they put him in a DH spot? Like, where do you think he goes?
I think you're going to see him in different places because you got to get a little bit creative. And you'll probably see him in the infield more often than not when he plays. And I would not rule out DH either on certain days, although that might get a little bit trickier because you don't want to take Priest out. You don't want to take Gaffney out. You want Bassett as bad. It's hard to get them all in. But maybe, one day you give Pano a day off and you can stick him at third. Maybe one day you want to give Purify a day off and you can stick him at second. Or you want to give Jake Jarrell a day off so you can move Gaffney to catcher and McClatty can play first. I mean, there's a whole lot of different ways that he can be used and fit in. And I think that's one of the things that kind of has helped him stay on the field so far, his bat and his versatility.
For sure. You can stick him anywhere. And I think there were a few guys that we kind of saw that with this weekend too. And I think, you'd go look at the lineup before every game and people would be in different spots every single game. And, I had no idea that Luke Gaffney even played catcher. And I was like, oh my goodness, is that who that is down there? But he was great, and that was cool to see.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I would say Gaffney's probably better at first than at catcher, but you got a guy you can move over there if you need to, if Gerald needs a day off. But there is probably nobody on that team that I've been happier to see get off to the start that he's gotten off to than Tristan McClatty because it was, I don't know, there's just something about him. He's just got that personality, and he's one of those guys you root for, and he is absolutely making the most of them right now.
Talking about bouncing back on the other side of things, Justin Legarnick had great outing. How did you feel about him? How important was that for his mental and going forward into this next weekend, the
It
outing he
was
had?
it was extremely important for his confidence first and foremost, because I thought he looked like a guy that got a little down on himself early in that game, and maybe the moment got a little too big for him. He looked completely opposite of that Sunday. Still had the 4 walks. You want to cut down on those, make no mistake. But man, his stuff was so much better than it was a week ago. He had command of at least 3 pitches. It seemed like he was kind of starting to rely on his fastball in that first start. He leaned on it probably a little too heavily, maybe. Kind of just threw it up there and said, "Here it is. See if you can hit it." And they said, "Okay."
They said, "We will."
But with South Carolina coming up next, you needed him to have that kind of bounce back start, because if he goes out there again Sunday and he gets tattooed again, you got to start rethinking things, because that Sunday game, that's the game in Founders Park. He's going to be the guy starting in Founders. He's not starting in Floor. He's not starting in Doug Kingsmore. He's starting in Founders, and that's a whole different animal. It's going to be a raucous environment, and him – having that boost of confidence that I'm sure he got from Sunday, I think that's going to be important. If he has the same stuff this Sunday that he did last Sunday, I think he'll be fine. He's just got to cut down. I'd much rather see 2 walks as opposed to 4. You don't. He's kind of 4 walks and 6 innings. That's a little too much, but if he can improve as much from last weekend to this weekend as he did from the first weekend to the second, I think he'll be fine.
I agree. And, it says something else too when you do give up 4 walks and don't give up any earned runs too. I think that was huge as well.
That first inning jam that he got out of, I think he had 2 men on, and didn't he get the double play ball to get out of it, if I'm remembering right? That was the turning point, or whatever you want to call it. Things could have easily went off the rails for him right there. He gets that double play ball and he comes back and he just lights out the rest of the way. I think he only gave up 1 hit and he had 6 strikeouts. You cut down on those walks, man, and he's got really good stuff. If he gets that command down to where it's pinpoint, he's going to be really good.
I agree. And I like Joe Allen coming in a lot too. I think that he gave a lot of great energy and was really clutch in those last innings that he was in as well. I was happy to see that for him. And, we had talked about, we thought he was going to get a starting role last weekend. So it was interesting to see him not throw until Sunday. But when he did, it was great. And I'm excited to see more of him.
He's had 2 really good outings. He
Yeah,
pitched in that game against Arizona. He threw a scoreless inning. He did walk a guy, but he didn't give up any hits, any runs. And this past appearance, he came out and pitched 2 1/3, give up the 1 hit, 5 strikeouts, in 2 1/3 innings. That's getting it done. He so far over the first 2 weekends, he's been a key component out of that bullpen.
I totally agree. What did you think of Friday night? Aiden Canuck and Drew Titsworth coming in. Again, same thing as Joe Allen, just clutch and save the bullpen for the rest of the weekend.
Titsworth's performance Friday night was huge. You just touched on it. You're playing 4 games in 3 days. You only get 5 innings out of Canuck. Titsworth comes in and gives you 4 innings, only gives up 2 hits, doesn't walk a guy, strikes out 5. But the biggest thing out of that, you don't use anybody else out of that bullpen. So you got everybody else left for the next 3 games. I think that was one of the biggest stories of the weekend. It was Titsworth's performance. And he's a guy, so far, he's been really good too. I mean, again, we're talking about really small sample sizes. We're 2 weekends in, but so far, so good for both those guys.
I agree. So far, so good for them, and also a Reed Garris and a Miles Debt. Like, I think you saw I'm getting more and more confidence with those guys too, being able to come in and know that, they're gonna give you a really good couple innings. I think that's gonna be huge this weekend too. The fact, especially, that Sunday game, that those guys are gonna be ready to go, and a lot of them are veterans and have played there before and know what's going on.
I think them tinkering with Mostad's arm slot over the offseason has made a world of difference. But at the same time, he's a guy that he's a guy that can come in and give you 2 innings, 3 innings, maybe even 4 if you need them. Reed Garris has not been that guy. He comes out and pitches 3 innings over the weekend. I think that might have been a career high for him, if I'm remembering right. I think his previous high might have been 2. Don't hold me to that, but I think the 3 was a career high. He gives up the 1 hit and the 1 run. But other than that, he was really good. He averaged a strikeout per inning. He threw the 2 innings against Arizona the weekend before, struck out 3 in those 2 innings. He's another guy that's off to a really strong start. There's a lot of guys in that bullpen that are off to really good starts. It'd probably be faster to talk about the guys who aren't off to good starts than so many of them that have gotten off had solid beginnings of the season.
That's gonna be crucial too. As the season goes on and, the wear and tear of everything, having that many guys that are reliable, I think is gonna help us stay in and win a lot of really huge games. Because I think we've shown that we're gonna be able to hit, um, for the most part, and you're gonna be able to have clutch hits, but that's always the question is, pitching, and I think they showed through the first couple weekends that is looking more and more solid, so that's exciting. Alright.
Yeah, you just got to keep those guys healthy, right? You
Yeah.
don't want to lose anymore. You've already lost 2 guys for the season, and a third's now retired, taking a medical retirement. So you've already lost Kissenberth, the transfer, Dane Moeller, the freshman, and that comes out the other day that Casey Tallent's having to retire due to a shoulder injury. I mean, that's 3 guys you're already without. I don't know if you can take any more hits, but I like the depth of this pitching staff coming into the season. But when you get down 3 guys after the first 2 weeks of the season, it starts putting a little bit of a squeeze on things. But bright side, you still haven't seen Michael Gillen yet. I would fully expect him to be ready to roll this weekend. I'll be surprised if he's not. That's probably been the goal all along, is to make sure he was ready by South Carolina. But I'm not saying there's a lack of depth. I'm just saying it's not quite as deep as maybe we thought it was going to be preseason, but I still like all the pieces out there.
I do too, and, I think there's guys that we haven't seen a ton of that could end up being good as well. How did you feel about, um, Bennett coming in, Winthrop?
I actually missed the beginning of that game, so I didn't get to see him. All I saw was his numbers. I was actually a little bit surprised when when the rotation or the starting pitchers were announced, and he was the guy. Because of all the freshmen that Eric Back has talked about during the preseason, I don't remember hearing Bennett's name mentioned. I remember TP Wentworth and Castellani, Talon Bell. Those are freshmen right off the top of my head that I can remember him talking about. And two of those guys are pitchers, or Wentworth's a two-way guy, anyways. But I don't remember. I just don't remember him talking about Bennett. But that don't mean anything. He could have had a solid preseason, solid fall too, and that just because Backus didn't mention him doesn't mean anything. It just surprised me, but he got a very he probably got a very good lesson his first time out. Again, I missed the first inning, so I didn't see it, but he's probably itching to get back out there again. It'd be interesting to see if they give him another shot this Tuesday.
I think they will, and one of the funniest moments of the last week of Clemson baseball to me was watching the game on TV. Coach Backish had the headset on talking, doing an interview, and while he was on the interview, Clemson gave up 2 home runs, and he said, "Well, guys, I think I need to go make a pitching change. You're gonna talk to Coach Leggett now." And put the headset on him, and it was the funniest thing, and then Coach Leggett, of course, just jumped right in, and but it was like, "Oh my goodness, I feel that this always happens." They just need to not interview him during a game ever again. That's what I'm learning.
It does feel like every time he jumps on the headset that
Something catastrophic.
somebody gives up a long ball. Yeah, I think it was Dvorsky maybe that gave up one of those the other day, or I can't remember off the top of my head, but because Dvorsky came out and pitched in one of those games against A&T, and we ended up giving up 2 runs in 2 and a third innings, but can't remember who it was. But that was a comical moment, and maybe you're right. Maybe Coach needs to say, "Hey, talk to Coach Leggett, talk to Coach Snob or
Yep.
Major, or somebody else." We got some bad juju every time I put on those headsets.
Those are your full-time interview guys, and certainly not no backage interviews this weekend is what I'm declaring right now. So, gotta talk about it. How are we feeling? What are the keys to win a game and win all 3 games this weekend?
To win a game, you want to win more than one.
Well,
You want
yes,
to win
I'm
at
just
least
saying, what's
two.
the starting line?
First and foremost, you want to get the Aiden Canuck you have grown to love over the past year or so, since he came on so strong early last year. You want him. You need him to come out and have his best stuff, and you got to start off with a win at home Friday night. You don't want to put yourself in a hole, drop that game, and then have to go win at Floor and at Founders in order to win the series. If you can start off with a win Friday night, then you kind of get the momentum rolling. All the momentum's on your side when you head to Greenville. And if you do by chance drop that one, then you're playing, you still got one more. But if you win that one, then you're playing with house money when you go to Founders on Saturday. So for me, I want to see mid-season Aiden Canuck. We've seen the good and a little bit of bad with him so far. He has not put together, his best. He's not had his best stuff throughout his first 2 starts. Let's put it that way. And now is the time for him to have it. That to me, that's one of the biggest storylines of the weekend. Who can win that first game here at Doug Kingsmore tomorrow night?
Let me tell you what's gonna be a loud environment, and that is gonna be Doug Kingsmore tomorrow night. I'm really excited. I hope that Clemson fans have been listening to Coach Backage telling them to go to the games, be loud, wondering how it's gonna look like having people be able to be right by that South Carolina bullpen. That's a whole story in and of itself right there.
I was fixing to mention that. It's gonna be fun to see, the new setup with the standing room only there right on top of the bullpen and how close they are to the dugout. Too bad they haven't got the beer sales finalized and already started in there yet, man. That would just amp it up even more. But yeah, when those two teams hook up, I don't care if it's at Doug Kingsmore, if it's at Floor, if it's at Sagra, if it's at Founders Park, it's gonna be a raucous environment. It's just gonna be one of those slobber knocker type games. You're gonna get each team's best shot. Um, it's always fun. You can feel the energy in the stadium. And if you've listened to Eric Backus speak, on a regular basis since he's been hired as the coach here, you can tell how important this series is to him. He lost it his first year. They lost 2 out of 3 to South Carolina his first year. They won both last year. So right now he's 3-2 against South Carolina. So what happens this weekend is going to decide whether he enters next season with a winning record or a losing record against those guys. And I think he treats it as one of the biggest events of the season, and I think that's the way it should be treated.
It was interesting hearing his press conference ahead of this versus Coach Maneri's for South Carolina because Coach Maneri was talking about how he thinks Coach Back is such a great guy and, very cordial with them. And Coach Backage came out and was like, I will have no intention of being friends with him. Like, that's never going to be the goal I have. I thought it was hilarious just hearing them side by side. So I think it definitely means a lot to him. And, needless to say, to both teams. Not to mention you have guys that, transferred from Clemson that are playing at Doug Kingsmore for the first time as Gamecock. So that's another level too.
Nathan Hall, Nolan Noraki, and both of those guys are off to pretty good starts. They're both hitting over 300. South Carolina has lost their Friday night starter to a season-ending injury, so I haven't gotten to watch them play any at all yet this year. When you're trying to watch every Clemson baseball game, it's hard to watch some of the other teams play because they're always playing at the same time. It feels like so if you watch one, it's hard to watch the other. So I haven't watched not the first inning, but I was told by a friend of mine that's pretty plugged in over there that he thought this was going to be a rebuilding year for them. Over their first several games, just looking at the box scores and some of the final scores, I don't know how right he is because they sure can hit the ball. I think I got their numbers pulled up right here. Give me 1 second. Yeah, here we go. Oh, let's see here. Well, I just went right out of it. Here we go. South Carolina's 8-0 already. They average 8.7 runs per game. They are hitting 304 as a team. They have a team ERA of 2.25. Ethan Petrie, who everybody should remember from last year's series, is hitting 452. Nathan Hall's hitting 433. Naraki's hitting 350. So they're swinging the bats really well. Some of that might be due to the competition they played because unlike Clemson, they didn't start the season out with 2 top 25 teams. They've been kind of feasting on mid-majors at this point. And that's not a knock on them because Clemson usually does that every year too. They just didn't do it this year. But going to find out a lot about both squads this weekend.
I agree. I think more than ever, those first 2 top 25 games are going to come in handy because you've played competition that is really solid. But whole nother level when it's a rival. Your nerves are amped up. You're away or you're home. It's going to be a good one. I'm excited. What's your prediction? How many you think they get?
Well, I'm 2 for 2 so far. I have thought about this and I've gone back and forth on it. I'm gonna get greedy, man. I'm saying Clemson wins the series. I'm not gonna get too greedy. I'm definitely not gonna predict a sweep, but I think they're gonna take 2 out of 3. This is going to be. I'm looking at South Carolina's schedule right now. This is going to be the Gamecocks' first test. They opened up at home with a 3-game sweep of Sacred Heart. Then they beat Winthrop. That's a common opponent in their first midweek game. They went and played that one at Rock Hill, by the way. They won 5-3. Then they played Queens and won 7-2. Then they played Milwaukee in a 3-game set last weekend. Beat Gardner Webb the other night. So they've not really been tested. Let's put it that way. They're fixing to get their first test of the season, and you just touched on it a minute ago. I think Clemson opening up there in Arlington and against that level of competition, I think this is the weekend you start to see that pay some dividends because this team's been tested. This team's been tested against good competition. South Carolina hasn't. I mean, and not that that's going to be the difference maker or anything. I just think it plays a part, and I think Clemson takes 2 out of 3.
It's a clear advantage for sure. And I'm with you. I think they take 2 out of 3. I think if they're gonna drop one, they're gonna drop one Sunday, but like you said earlier, playing with house money at that point. Win the series, come back, say that you've won it, do it for all Big 3 Clemson sports. This is the weekend.
Yeah, I think people, with the start Canucks gotten off to and giving up the runs late there in the last 2 innings he pitched in Arlington and then giving up a couple more over the weekend last Friday. I think, maybe there's a little bit of concern he's not going to be what he was last. I think tomorrow is when you see Aiden Canuck, the Aiden Canuck that you were expecting to see. I don't think you have to worry about him being leashed with any pitch count. I think if he's on, he'll be able to go fairly deep. Might not see him throw 110 pitches or anything like that, but if he's got good stuff and he's got his command, I could easily see him going 6 or 7, depending on what happens. And I think he's going to be the catalyst. I think they're going to get that kind of quality start out of him tomorrow. I think they win game 1. Then I think you get you get another one from Darden on Saturday. I think he continues to do what he has been doing the first 2 weekends of the season, and I think Clemson takes the first 2 games and then maybe drops game 3 there in Founders. That's not an easy place to play. I've been there, a few times. It's different there than it is at Doug Kingsmore. They're both great environments, but it's different. At Doug Kingsmore, you got an older, more laid-back crowd. Have Founders, especially back a few years ago when South Carolina was still winning. It's a younger, more raucous crowd. They're just 2 different types of environments, depending on what kind of person you are. Maybe one resonates more with you than the other. Both of those, they're both, jam up environments. You can't get any better. They're just different. And, I'm a little, I hate to say it, but I'm a little concerned about LeGuernick going in there on the road. And that's why I'd like to see Clemson win the first 2 and all the pressure's off, man, and he can just go out there and deal.
Justin LeGuernick legacy game. Here it is. It's coming. I believe it. JP, are you excited to go? You're going to that game too.
Yes, I'm going to all 3. I like the sound of that LeGuernick legacy game. I like it.
There we go.
This is the series. This is the series where these guys can lay the foundation for their legacy, put their name in the record book. Nobody's going to forget Chufo's walk-off homer last year. I mean, his name is etched in Clemson history because of that hit in that series. Who's going to be the guy that does it this weekend?
We'll see. It's going to be a good one. I'm excited.
Me and you both. I always enjoy going to the games there at Floor too. I mean, it gets a little, by Sunday you're a little tired after being in Clemson, Greenville, Columbia, but it makes it's well worth it because you're going to get good baseball and you're getting this is the best rivalry in college baseball. Hands down, bar none. There's no argument to be made for no other series to be the best in college baseball. This is it. And this is kind of, if you're a baseball person like me, this is what you've been looking forward to for, you know, for me, it's been 6 months. This is the weekend I've been looking forward to, even before the end of football season. A lot of you might have started looking forward to it once the football season ended, but this is one of the
Not
biggest week.
JP.
Nah, this is one of the biggest weekends of the year for me. I always enjoy this series. Just to be a part of it, man. It's kind of hard to put into words, but you got to get that first one. I think that's key for Clemson winning tomorrow night.
I think so too. Well, we'll see. We're less than 24 hours until JP's favorite weekend. So, Merry Christmas, JP. Merry Baseball Christmas.
I came up a day early so I could be good and rested.
Christmas Eve.
Somebody mentioned in the comments earlier, I've changed my location again. Yeah, I was in a different spot in my house Monday doing my Monday show, because my wife has totally destroyed my bedroom and where my office is. It's undergoing renovations. It is not usable right now. Matter of fact, I slept in the living room last night. Hopefully it'll be ready to roll by the time I get back. We ended up having to hire somebody, and he got sick. He couldn't come finish it today, but it's a long story. But I'm in Clemson now. That's why I'm in a different spot. But yeah, I came up a day early so I can be good and rested for that one tomorrow night.
Ready to go. Well, we'll have you covered with all you need to know this weekend, and I'm pumped. It's going to be a win. It's going to be great. I'm excited.
That makes two of us. I'm pumped too. I'm ready to see Canuck. I'm ready to see the Canuck from last year.
Me too.
We have
And
not
I'm excited. I hope Cam can get going too. I think that'd be really fun this series as well.
this this is the time when he starts to shine, right? Um, he's been a little bit on the struggle bus to start the season. He's kind of had his moments here or there, but he's only hitting 269. That is not very Cam like. And this is a perfect opportunity for those guys, him and Canuck, to get it going, because ever since Canuck's first two innings, when he struck out those first six hitters, and then he was really good the first inning Friday, he's been a little up and down in the other innings. Now it's time for both those guys to put it all together, because this team, you get Canuck going the way we know he can go. You get Cam being the Cam you're used to seeing from the past 2 years, and this team might hit a whole different level.
Absolutely. And I think both of those guys, Aiden Canuck and Cam, are both the type of people that thrive under huge pressure. That's what we've seen for 2 years from Cam and last year with Canuck. And I think there's no better time than this weekend. Um,
Yeah, I
Stakes on
don't.
the line. I think this is the time you see them shine. I think you're right.
Yeah, I don't think Canuck. I think Canuck's a guy that I don't even think he feels pressure really, or he doesn't seem to. He's just so routine oriented and so laser focused on the task at hand. It's like he takes it one pitch at a time. Even if he gives up a home run, man, it's on to the next. It's like it flushed it instantly. Doesn't dwell on it. And that's the sign of a really good pitcher, man. He's going to have a long career, assuming everything stays on track for him. And the same with Canarella. He's one of those guys I see a little bit in a different light. I think Canarella is one of those guys that kind of feasts on pressure. The more pressure, maybe
The
the
better.
better he performs. The bigger the spotlight, the bigger the stage. I think he embraces that. I think he embraces those opportunities with open arms. And this is very likely going to be his last series ever against South Carolina. Might as well go out with a bang.
I see it coming. And you think of all his biggest moments in his career, they've all happened in huge games. Like, he's had great moments in the midweek games and, the opening weekends here and there, but you think of Cam Canarella, you're thinking about the Florida game and the regional and all these big time things. So again, add it to his legacy if he can have a great weekend, and he's already started that and made that, but this would be a great time to add a South Carolina crazy series to the mix.
Oh yeah, Cam's legacy is already cemented at Clemson. Make no mistake. Anything he does from here on out is just icing on the top. But he's a guy they definitely need to get it going. He's off to a little bit of a slow start, but this again, this seems like the opportune time to do that. And even if he doesn't, he's coming around at some point. That's a guy that's not going to stay in a slump very long. If you play baseball long enough, anybody that's played it knows you're going to go into a slump at some point in your career, multiple slumps to be exact. And I wouldn't even call what Cam's in right now a slump. Again, he's hitting close to 270. I'm not sure I'd call that a slump. It's just not very Cam-like. We're just so accustomed to seeing greatness. So when he gets off to a little slow start, you're like, "What's wrong? Well, what's wrong with him?" His slump is good for a lot of other guys. There's a lot of other players that would be kill to be hitting 280. He
With what,
280.
3 doubles the first
Yeah,
weekend? Yeah,
two.
imagine.
Cam's hitting 280 and he's struggling. But he's gonna eventually be the Cam of old, and I could definitely see him kind of busting out this weekend.
Totally could too, and I think, you always have the possibility of, like, a Chufo from last year, somebody that you don't even see coming that ends up stepping up and becoming the MVP of the weekend. So watch out for Josh Payno, somebody like that, Colin Priest. I don't know.
That
I could totally see that happening too.
that's what I meant a minute ago when I was talking about, somebody always seems to, make one of those plays or steps up and kind of makes a name for themselves in one of these games every year. It was Chufo last year. Who's it going to be this year? Cantarella's already made a name for himself. So I'm
Right.
thinking of a guy that hasn't. I'm thinking of a player that hasn't had that moment yet. And the first one that came to my mind was Pano. It must have been the first one that come to yours too, because he was the first one you listed.
Yep.
Listy would be a very close second because so far he's my favorite player on this team. But there's just something about Josh Pano. I think he's on the verge of just really, really having a super strong weekend. Not that he's not already been good. Heck, he's hitting 370 as is, and he's got one of their 5 home runs on the season. But I think he's one of those guys that could have that type of weekend or one of those types of games to where he kind of just makes a name for himself in that game.
All right, my pick is Josh Payno. Who are you picking?
Yeah, I'm going with him too.
Okay.
And yeah, that's who I'm going with. I don't know if it's going to be a home run or a 3-run double or a 2-run double or a single in the
Crazy
ninth.
play in third base.
I was about to say, or a single in the ninth that scores 2 runs to win it. But don't be surprised if it's not some outstanding defensive play that saves a couple of runs. Because that guy, he has been so good defensively. Yeah, I know Gaffney's had to bail him out on a couple of throws, but that was early on. He's really cleaned that up, over the past few games. And he's just one piece of that infield that's been so good. Because with him and with Chufo and with Purify, it's almost like you got 3 shortstops out there. Because all 3 of those guys are capable of playing shortstop. Pano's already played it once or twice in place of Chufo already this season, and Purify was a shortstop coming up. So, I mean,
I think Cam was a shortstop in high school too.
I can't remember. He might be right, but that's a big part of why this team is off to such the start that it is because of the defense, and Pano has been a big part of that. I could easily see him making one of those crazy plays at third that saves 2 runs and ends up winning the game for him at some point. It'd be nice if it happened tomorrow in front of the home crowd.
Listen, any play like that in front of the home crowd is something super memorable, something I'll never forget, you know? That's gonna be really fun, and I think it's shaping up to be a really good series. I'm really excited about it. I can't wait to see. I hope the Clemson fans bring it, like you were talking about, you know, the younger crowd at South Carolina. I think we have a lot of students there because I think now more than ever, at least since I've been in school, Clemson students are bought in to this team. And I don't know if that's because of
Absolutely.
the social media, but I think you're gonna see more students there than usual.
Oh, I think the fan base is 100% bought in since
Oh,
Eric
yeah.
Blackett has been hired. And, I might not have said it right earlier because when I was comparing the two atmospheres at the venues, I wasn't meaning to put Clemson's down. They're just different. I mean, the environment at Doug Kingsmore is electric. When they're like during the regional, super regional, when South
Oh, yeah.
Carolina's there, or maybe when Georgia visits for a midweek game, or even Coastal sometimes. Um, it's electric. It's electric at Founders too. I just meant that they're different types of atmospheres. Sometimes, let's say for a weekend series against Notre Dame, you get an older, more laid back crowd. And when I've been to Founders, it's always younger and louder and more raucous. They're just two different types of environments. I know which one I prefer, but I'm older and laid back and not very raucous. So um,
Really, JP? You seem like you are.
they're
You
both,
seem like the type.
yeah, nah, they're both fantastic atmospheres. They're just very different from each other.
Well, it's gonna be a great one. I'm so excited. We'll be back next week to talk all about it, and we'll have a lot to discuss, I'm sure. But we're both saying 2-1. We're taking the win. Hopefully, they can prove us wrong and get the sweep. I'm hoping for it.
I didn't want to be stingy. I said sweep last weekend, but that was mostly because of the competition. This is a big series every week, every year. I mean, emotions are going to be running high. That even if it turns out this is a rebuilding year for South Carolina, there's still talent on that team. They can hit the ball. They're going to score some runs. There's some power in that lineup. Um, so in turn, Clemson's going to have to score some runs to win. Make no mistake. But I just think Clemson has, from top to bottom, and everything, all things considered, top lineup, bottom lineup, and then you compare the pitching staffs. I just think Clemson's a little bit. I think Clemson's a better team right now. And when you stretch these things out over 3 games over a weekend, more often than not, the better team's going to win 2 out of 3. It doesn't happen every time. That's what makes baseball so great. But more often than not, the better team's going to take 2 out of 3, and I think that's what's going to happen this weekend.
I think so too. Well, JP, can't wait to see if our predictions are right. I'm hoping you have fun in Columbia on Sunday. I'll see you tomorrow. It's gonna be a good one.
Yes, ma'am. You didn't have to bring up the trip to Columbia. That'll get here soon. My sister
Listen,
lives in Columbia.
working on getting your beauty sleep tonight so you're ready to go tomorrow. That's what matters right now.
Yeah, my sister lives in Columbia. Maybe I'll just go sleep at her house Sunday night or Saturday night after the game in Greenville. We'll see. But I am definitely gonna. That's why I came up here today. I'm gonna knock off early tonight. I'm gonna be well rested for tomorrow, 100%.
Ready to go. Guys, don't worry. JP is gonna be his sharpest tomorrow.
I'm always my sharpest. You got it. No brain farts this weekend. Promise.
Oh no. It's gonna be a great one.
All right. We appreciate everybody that tuned in this week. Want to thank our sponsor, Mission Roofing. For Miss Ashby Mixon, I'm Jason Priester. We'll have you covered all weekend. Don't forget, spring practice starts tomorrow. We'll have you covered there. We'll have all the games, baseball games covered. Check us out, ClemsonInsider.com. Right back here next Thursday, 7 p.m. We'll be talking about the series win over South Carolina. See you then.